Back in here, it is 8:10 on this Monday, February 4th, and from the Laramie Girls Fastpitch Softball board is Nick Hauser's in studio with me. Good morning. How are you today?
Good morning, David. I'm doing well. Thanks for having us.
Hey, not a problem. I appreciate you coming in and talking a little bit about this topic. It's been kind of a topic that I think started a little bit of the fever pitch last summer, and now it's coming to fruition, at least here from a local standpoint, as you guys go to a little work session and kind of present to the school board this week here, and then hopefully we'll get some good news next week at their actual annual or monthly board meeting, I should say, not annual, but monthly board meeting. But I wanted to start, first of all, a little background. Obviously, Laramie Girls Fastpitch Softball goes back to what, kind of mid-2000s or so?
Yeah, mid-2000s, maybe about 2008 when it officially was formed as an association.
And then it's grown pretty much. I mean, I think it kind of got a slow start, but it's really exploded in the last couple of years, it looks like, from a participation standpoint.
Yeah, we're really proud of the amount of growth that we've been able to implement for the Softball Association as it pertains here in Laramie, and really to actually keep that momentum going. So we're averaging a little more than 140 girls that we are serving or having teams for since about 2015 or so.
Okay.
So being able to maintain that amount really, I think, speaks volumes to where we've come, the foundation that was laid by the original LGS board members, and really the participation and the excitement that's around the community for girls softball. I remember
when this got going, and there was a decent number of players, but it just never seemed to kind of explode until this last little push here in the last couple of years. So I'm excited to see what happens, because this has been, as I mentioned, kind of came at a fever pitch at state tournament last July, and then all of a sudden really got the ball rolling across the state with a major conversation. Let's start with your involvement. How did you get involved with Laramie Girls Fastpitch Softball, Nick?
Okay, so I have two young daughters, one that is 10 and one that is 8. And when my 10-year-old was 7 years old, she decided that she wanted to participate in softball. Okay. So back then at 8Us, that's the fast pitch, or the pitching machine style. I volunteered as a coach. We had a really wonderful time. My daughter just absolutely loved it, and it really became a passion for her. I was approached by a board member at the time after that season to actually become a part of Laramie Girls Softball board.
Right.
So I'm heading into my 3rd season actually as a board member for Laramie Girls Softball, and I've been a coach actually in the 8U division. This will be my 4th or 5th season overall since we started. So it started with my daughters.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, and Nick was coach of a pretty good 8U squad that triumphed last July in Casper at the state level, so congratulations to you and that squad. That was a lot of fun to hear about, and a lot of great work has been put in to build this program. Now, the fever pitch started kind of coming off state. This isn't the first time we've had a push for softball in the state. I want to say there was one back at around 2011, 2012 or so. This one seems a little bit different. Do you kind of get that feeling across the state a little bit?
Well, to be honest, I'm not real sure about the previous movement that occurred, but I definitely feel like right now there is a lot of momentum that's been going on as far as pushing for high school sports, or softball to be added as a high school sport. We were approached by a group out of KOWB initially to really gauge our interest in what this would mean and the type of work we would need to put in as it pertains to being a part of the board. And from there, I think that group has really reached out to several other associations in the state. Laramie being one of the bigger associations, was definitely something that they wanted to get on board with the entire movement. There was also a group out of Arizona that caught on to this idea of adding Wyoming, or adding softball as a school sport in Wyoming, and they have helped with some serious social media push, and with their kind of backing and their maybe social media savvy, that's really gathered the masses, you could say, in Wyoming, and really pushed this throughout the entire state.
Yeah, and by the way, folks, if you're not familiar, Wyoming is one of only 2 states that does not sanction girls fast pitch softball as a high school sport, the other being South Dakota. And so this would be something to be kind of, I look at it, and yes, I will be honest and upfront with the audience, I have a vested interest because I have a young daughter that's part of the 10U division that is highly motivated and loves the sport right now, and she can't get enough of it, it seems like. So there's different age divisions as you play outside of it, but obviously trying to make the push here to sanction it as a high school sport, to give these girls the opportunity, and there's so much that plays into this. As you, and I don't know how much you specifically, Nick, have, but maybe other board members have, and you've talked with them, but what's the conversation been like between the different associations across the state, just in terms of some things that they've learned to do or not do when presenting to school boards and things like that? Because this started last fall, and Cody was a big winner. I think Worland's on board, Green River, Rock Springs. Yep. And I know there are some others that hopefully some other dominoes to fall in a positive direction. But what's that conversation been like in terms of people learning what to do or not do, or say or not say with these school boards?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because each school board is a different political climate, and we certainly understand that from our local perspective. So really what we've done is we've taken information that we've seen presented out to those other school boards and molded it in a way that we feel is appropriate for our presentation to our school board here locally. We've had several conversations with Dr. Yenny, as you pointed out. You spoke to him in the fall as well, and he's helped us as well to really formulate what our message should be and what we should focus on from our local perspective.
You mentioned those conversations, and I don't want to necessarily say this in a negative light, but do you guys get the sense that we're kind of been dragging our feet a little bit? And the only reason I bring that up, and you might have a different perspective on that, Nick, is I saw things happen so quickly and rapidly with some of these other districts, and I understand that there's, you know, you're planning for certain things at certain times of year. It just seemed like things got going quicker in some places, not as quick in other places, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that has to do more with the fact that those other places had been working towards this earlier than we had.
Okay.
So us being only really presented with this idea or this opportunity maybe late summer, we were a little bit behind the ball as far as the board goes.
Okay.
So that maybe leads to this little bit of a delay. Certainly we wanted to make sure that all of our ducks were in a row. We wanted to have the correct communication as we go and look to do this presentation. And we wanted to be sure that it was going to be something that was at least going to be received. So that's why we met several times with Dr. Yenny to ensure that we did have the pieces in place and that it was following the protocol from the Albany County School District and what they would be expecting as far as some sort of presentation like this.
That is going to happen this Wednesday, February 6th, in a little bit of a school board work session, and then the following Wednesday is their monthly meeting on the 13th, and that's when we're expecting some sort of official vote.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what direction that our work session goes into this Wednesday. We certainly understand that there is a little bit of urgency as it pertains to wanting to get as many schools on board as possible.
Right.
The state requires that there are 8 schools that are committed to a specific sport before at the state level they will actually vote on adding that as a sport. And they're looking at some sort of April timeline for there to be a Wyoming High School State Athletic Association meeting. So we know that we're up against that, but we also understand that, you know, there could be a lot more that goes into the decision than what we maybe are able to present this Wednesday. What we're hopeful for is that the dialogue is now starting this Wednesday, and that this won't be the last time that we have a conversation with them, and regardless of how they're feeling, you know, this week, that we can continue to have conversations moving forward to ensure that, you know, we are kept in the front of their minds, and we understand the things that they are looking for from us as a community in order to show that there is support for this as being added as a high school sport at Laramie High.
Well, we'll find out. Again, Wyoming, one of just 2 states that have not sanctioned the sport at the high school level. It's Wyoming and South Dakota, as I mentioned earlier, talking with Nick Hauser from Laramie Girls Fastpitch Softball, their board. And again, that work session is coming up Wednesday, and then we'll see the following Wednesday if there's any sort of vote on that or not, yay or nay, or if it, or at least it starts the conversation, as you mentioned. Girls Fastpitch Softball, if you're not familiar with, and this is something you're going to present on Wednesday, is the 5th most popular sport, which I don't think people around this region of the country might realize. It is a lot bigger in different portions of the country, but again, it's starting to catch on around here.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, nationwide, it is the 5th most popular sport by participation, and I believe the 4th most popular sport actually by actual number of teams.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's definitely, it's out there nationwide, and as you said, it's definitely picking up steam here in the state of Wyoming. We had over 600 girls participate in the several different age groups that are represented by the Wyoming USSA chapter for the state tournament this past summer in Casper. So that, from what I understand, that continues to grow, and they continue to add teams within each one of those divisions, and so the popularity is certainly on the rise within the state.
Absolutely. So now, as you look at this work session, what are some of the key pieces to the presentation that you feel that you really want to put in front of the school board to give them more knowledge on this?
Absolutely. So what we're wanting to do is present this opportunity. It's a community opportunity, really, to offer another outlet for girl athletes to be able to participate in a sport. What we want to show is our growth, what we've been able to maintain over the last few years, and actually show where we see a drop-off, which is typically getting up into that high school range. You know, girls are needing to make decisions at that point, and I think that really helps our cause to show that there is an opportunity, or if there was a bigger opportunity, that perhaps we could keep more going through. Certainly we'll want to address some concerns that the board may have. You know, obviously, as we all are aware, here in Wyoming, budgetary concerns are of utmost importance, and you know, we have put together an estimate that we feel is appropriate according to what we have done in the past, buying equipment, buying jerseys, field rentals, that type of thing. So we want to you know, address that with them and get some feedback from them to maybe understand a bit further whether or not we've really addressed that as a concern, or what we would need to do to move forward and move past that potentially.
Yeah, the budget and cost, all that's always going to be a big issue. You talk about you know, adding another opportunity for girls. How much does Title IX play into this? You know, just I get a sense that for some it plays a big role, for others it doesn't play a big role. They're just looking at this maybe not so much as a Title IX aspect of just giving these girls an opportunity.
That's certainly our perspective, is we are coming from the opportunity side of things, and we've heard maybe some conflicting reports based on Title IX, whether some school districts are following it, others are not, whether the state is. None of us are lawyers on the board. None of us are Title IX experts by any means. We'll leave that up to, you know, the state level, if that's really where it needs to come from, whenever that potentially would come up. What we're really focused on is that opportunity, and really focused on what we could do as a community if we were to able to add this as a high school sport for our girls in Laramie.
So obviously the district's going to probably have some questions about the financial aspect of it, and so the biggest question, I guess, is where would the funding come from? And that, you know, you got to look at the hiring of coaches and getting all those initial costs are going to be pretty steep to begin with, but then will that kind of dwindle down a little bit to kind of average out year by year almost? I know you kind of put together this presentation and it kind of looks that way, at least from what I glanced at.
That would be our assumption, yes, that we would have an initial kind of large fee to get into this as a sport, because we've got to buy new equipment, we've got to buy new jerseys, and those are, you know, two really big expenses that would be up front. Moving along, we would only be needing to replace a certain amount of equipment as we go through, a certain amount of jerseys, those types of things, so that cost would come down after the first year. And yes, of course, we would be adding new coaches, you know, travel budget, those types of things. And that's really where we would look for guidance from the school board as far as what we could do to help either raise funds or, you know, where the money comes from within the school district, those types of things where we're just not that experienced in, but we would love to help and love to keep that dialogue open in order to find out where we can do that.
Before I let you go, Nick, any other key things that you really want to get across to the school board this Wednesday, or that the public should be aware of in terms of looking at this as trying to sanction it as a high school sport? Anything else?
I wouldn't say that there's anything specific outside of really this opportunity that we feel like we have. Again, we're one of the larger associations in the state. For us as a board to not present this opportunity to our school district, we'd be remiss and we wouldn't be giving our girls a voice, and that's really important to us. I think it's important for the school board to hear what the current climate is according to, you know, the interest in softball, and we'll go from there. I mean, it's really going to be we'll see what happens, I guess.
I'm curious to see how it's received by the board and how they look at it, and then we'll see what the time frame is. You know, when I talk with Commissioner Laird, he's like, we're going to do whatever our boards and our folks want to do, because it's not really up to the State High School Activities Association commissioner or the assistant commissioner in their office. They get told basically what their membership wants, and so it kind of comes down to, as Ron Laird and I were talking last October, on basically a school board by school, or school district by school district decision. So that comes down to the school board. Obviously, you got some support already. Some of the bigger towns, I think, are, for lack of a better phrase, a little bit behind the curve a little bit, but you know, they've got surveys and participation things going out. You guys are at least presenting this month. I think you're ahead of places like Cheyenne, Casper, and Gillette at this point in time. So we'll see, but I'm curious as to when if this does get approved, when they decide to go with this, because I don't know, people are already starting to plan this time of year for their next year's budget, so I'm wondering if we might not see this until maybe the spring of 2021 at this rate.
I would assume that would be probably the earliest that it could actually get implemented, but you know, 2021 is better than never.
Yeah, so that's true. That's true.
We'll see.
Any I guess thought in terms of whether you lean fall or spring sport here in the state?
A spring sport, yes.
Okay.
And a survey did go out to several parents, and I believe maybe through some certain school districts, but yes, because of the balance of where sports are for girls specifically, spring was the time that the sport was going to be looked at to be added.
All right, just wanted to clarify that, because I think that's Ron Laird had kind of said something similar in the fall. So we'll see how it goes. Want to wish you guys the best of luck. I appreciate your time this morning, and curious as to where the conversation goes from here. But good luck at the presentation Wednesday.
Yeah, thank you, David.